Hello and welcome to another installment of my Python for Beginners series. In this video we're going to be covering looping, and it comes in many forms, but just back to our old flow diagram again. As a basis of how it can work, you've got a start point, we could set a value, we can make a decision that if a number is less than 10, which we've set it to 0 here, so it is. We're going to print the number and we're going to loop round, make the decision again. Is it still less than 10? Print the number, and this one would actually keep going forever. What we would generally do is look at setting a condition in here, or not a condition, the condition's here, sorry, to change the value of number. So normally we'd print it, change the value here, because this loop will never ever stop. It'll just keep going round and round. It's exactly the same idea again, but this time the loop would never enter because we initially check if the number is less than 10, it's not, so we exit. Usually looping works one of three ways. We have a for loop, a while loop, and a range loop. There are other types in other languages, but in Python we have the for, the while, and the range. Now range is actually a type of for loop anyway, but we'll cover that shortly. In the meantime, let's just have a quick recap of some of our list code. So we're going to start by creating a list called list name. So that's just a variable name. I've declared the variable name as list names equals, and we've got square brackets to create our list, quotes, Craig, quotes, Emma, quotes, Sam, and quotes, Alex. Okay, so what's this len function? It just lets us work out the length of the list, as in how many elements are in the list. Remember, each of these are an element. All the areas separated by the comma is an element. So in here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 elements. And if I do len, which is a function, and I throw inside that list names, and this is why I'm not a fan of Visual Studio with Python. In actual fact, Visual Studio Code does this better. So does PyCharm, but I wanted to have a stab at using all the different IDs in these videos. It still hasn't offered me the list names from above it. It's recognised it now, it's there, but I've had to type all of it. Okay, so length list names. I forgot to give it a name, look. So we're calculating the length of the variable names, which contains a list with 4 elements, and we are assigning it to the variable list length. That's how you break it down. And then we're going to print list length. Okay, and if I run that, I'll have to keep pulling the window over, which is slightly annoying, but we can see it's printed the list length and it says press enter key to continue to exit. And in here, this is just another reminder of the fact that we start counting at 0. So index 0 is Craig, index 1 is Emma, index 2 is Sam, and index 3 is Alex. That's just really adding an extra function with the use of the len function to work out the length of a list. It will also work with a string to tell you how many characters are in a string. And a reminder of how the indexing works. So let's have a look at a while loop then. A while loop runs until a specific condition has been met. And there are, again, a few ways that we could potentially do this. So we're going to start with the same list. I'm just going to copy paste that to make it easier. And in the way that you've seen before, we're going to start just by printing the full list. In the comma, and then we're going to put and this time it's found the list names. Okay, so that we've seen before. Sorry about that, just had to stop an alarm reminder. So I'm going to add in that list length function, the length function later again. For now I'm going to leave it out. What I am going to do is create a variable called index. This is going to be related for the index position of each of these elements, which is why I'm calling it index. And I'm going to start it at 0, so we're going to start at the first index. Okay, so this is where the while loop begins. So while index is less than. Now what I could do is look at this and go, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So I could say it's less than 4. Print. Now, so I'm going to output the index position. I wonder why isn't that print giving me... Oh, it is. Okay. Right, so print. I'm going to then output the index position. Index. And then I'm going to put element. And I'm going to call up the value or the contents of the element. And if you remember, this is our square bracket function. I'm going to give myself a little bit more space there. So we're going to do list names with a square bracket. And then we're going to put in index. And somehow I've lost my close bracket. Anyway, put that back. Okay. Let's talk through that. What we're doing, we're combining a print statement, and it's going to read an index, and then it's going to substitute whatever value index is set at here. So it'll, in the first loop, it will start with 0. Then it's going to put the word element next to it. And then it's bringing up the list names, and it's going to choose the contents of the element at position index. So when this is 0, it's going to pull up Craig. When it's 1, it's going to pull up Emma. When it's 2, it's going to pull up Sam. And when it's 3, it's going to pull up Alex. So let's see that in action. I am going to set a breakpoint, and I'm going to set the breakpoint here because this bit we've seen before. So pulling it over, we've created the list, and if I hover over it we can see it's populated, we've got the comment, and I can drop down like that to see all the different elements. Okay, we've also done the print, and we've set the index value as 0. If I hover over it we can see that the index is set to 0. And now we've hit the breakpoint and the code execution has stopped. And I can now step into this code. So we've done the first one. So we start at index 0 while it is less than index 0. So it dropped down. Oh, you know what? I've missed a line. I'm sorry. What have I not done? I haven't increased the index. What this does is every time it loops, it's going to increase the value of index. So back to the same point, we've done that, we've set index to 1, we step in, index is less than 1, so it comes down to here, then we do this first line, and it's done exactly what I said, it's printed the word index at 0, because we've set it to 0, the element contents is Craig, because that's what's in element 0. We add 1 to the value of index. Index is now 1. 1 is still less than 4, so it will loop. It prints. We increment the value. This time index is 2, which is still less than 4, so that will still loop in. It prints. Increase index. So index is now 3, which is less than 4. Do the print. Index is now 4, which is not less than 4. That's now false. So the program finishes. Now, what you'd be more likely to see is something like this. Or you might see it done like this, which is just saying that we're going to use the list length. Instead of working it out manually, we're doing it programmatically, so we don't need to know how long this list is at the start. Done index length. List length is a much more sensible name. And then instead of calculating that every time, just put the colon back. And that does exactly the same thing. The benefit is that we don't need to know how long this list is before we start. And this is exactly what we saw in the code. We come down, we declare the list. In fact, I've missed a stage in that diagram. I'll have to go back and fix that. So if index is less than that, we increase the index, we go round, print, increase the index, go round until it's less than. I will fix that diagram shortly. That's a definite mistake. Okay, so we've got, yes, booleans. Looking at this as a boolean. We've covered booleans before, and remember that we've said when we're doing selection previously, this bit was just evaluating to true or false, and the same is still the case. We're saying that giving a statement index is less than the variable list length. If that statement is true, it will run. If it's false, it will not run. So, let's have a look at how we might do that. Element exists equals bool. Index is less than list length. And that code there becomes element exists. We're going to do that. We're going to increase the index still, but then we'll have to work out the boolean again here. So I'm just going to copy paste it. Just while I'm remembering, this is all inside the code block for the while loop. So that's your while loop, and this is the code block for the while loop. All these parts here, all these statements run inside the while loop. I'm just going to run that. So we've done element exists. We've decided that's true. We've braked. We check element exists, which is true because we've done it. Go to the print statement. Add one to the index. We recalculate the element exists. So element exists is true. And we drop down. Do the print again. Increase the index. Check if element still exists. Element does still exist. Go again. Element still exists. Element does exist. Go again. Element doesn't exist this time, so we break out the loop and we're finished. The final way we can break out of a while loop is with a break statement. This uses the if function that we've looked at previously. So we're going to start, I'm still going to create 0, going to leave the list length. In fact, we don't need that there. List length. Kill that. This time we're just going to put while true. Now this will generate the kind of infinite loop that we looked at the top before where I didn't have a conditional. What I can do is add in an if statement and say that if index is greater than or equal to list length, break. So this time it's going to keep looping until we hit this break point. So let's have a look at this one in action. So we're going to come down. It's true, so it's going to do the first one regardless. We've set the index to 0 and it prints. Increases the value of index. If index is greater than or equal to list length, you might notice I've reversed it. That's just to avoid me having to change the logic type. We were saying if it was less than that before, now we're saying if it reaches the length of the list, because then it's gone beyond here. Remember that with a list length of 4, the last element is 3, so if it reaches a length of 4, we want it to break out. It's not, so we loop around and we keep going. Index is now 2. It's still not greater or equal to list length, so we go around again. Index is now 3, which is still not greater than or equal to the length of the list at 4, so we go around again. Increase it. This time index is 4, which is greater than or equal to list length. So we drop to the break and we exit. Okay, so moving on. The for loop. I need to fix all these diagrams. I've missed a key element. Spot the deliberate mistake. I'm not incrementing anything here. Okay, let's keep coming down. I'll fix the blog post afterwards. So we have the same basis for code here. We've got the same list that we've seen before. We print it out just so we can see what it's like there. Then we do a list length. And this time, in fact, we don't need the list length there. We don't need to do that one either. So we're declaring a name, or a variable called name. And for each element we find in this list, we're going to assign it to name. And then we're going to print it out. So for every name in list names, so we just loop through every element in the variable list names. We assign each one to the variable name and then we print. Let's see how that one runs in action. Because I always think a lot of these sound more confusing than they are when you see them run through with a debugger. Oh, I didn't set the breakpoint. So we can see what it's done. It's done that, but we'll do it again with the breakpoint. And we'll step through. So once again, we've created the list. I've clicked on the step-in ones. This time we've assigned the value in element 0, or the first element, to name. Name is now equal to Craig, and we're going to print the contents of that one, which we have. So this time, stepped in, it's gone to the next one. So name is now Emma from element 2. We'll print that one. Step in again. This time name is Sam, because it's the next element. Print that one. This time name is Alex. Print that one, and there's no more names in the list, so we exit. Okay, so let's have a look at a range loop. And start with a similar piece of code. Let's have a little bit more room again. Here we go. The range function starts at 0 by default and will go up until this number, but will not include it. So this will do elements 0, 1, 2 and 3. This just uses numbers instead. Once again, I'm going to set a breakpoint and then we'll start debugging. So we've created the list for index in range. So the first index is 0. We're going to output the index and the contents of list names at index number here. In this case it'll be 0. And it's exactly what we've output. The range now increments by 1. You can increment by more than 1, but 1 is the default. Increments by 1 again. And there's no more, so the program exits. So what we can also do is specify the start and the end point. So for example, if I wanted to start at element 1, I can do that. Add a 1 in there. So this now says go from 1 to 4 with, again, still the default increment, which is 1. Let's start here. We've created a list, breakpoints kicked in, we've stopped running the code, and now we're going to step into it. So the index this time is 1, because that's where we said we're going to start. So it's skipped Craig and we've started at Emma, which is index 1. Increments the next one, 2, and index 3, and we exit. Okay, so the last change then is to add in the ability to jump increments and the fact that range doesn't have to be related to a list. So let's have a look at another one. We have for number in range, and we're going to start at the number 0. We're going to go up to number 10, but we're not going to include it. And then we're going to only do every other. So we're going to have 0, we're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8. And remember, we stopped before we hit 10. Doesn't include 10, so we won't have 10. And I'm going to print number. And then I'm going to add a multiplied by. And I'm going to add another output of number. I could do number squared, I typed here, but another comma. I'm going to add in an equal sign. comma, and then I'm going to do a little bit of maths right here in the print statement, and all I'm going to do is number multiplied by number. I could do this calculation first and put a line in between the above print. It does the same thing. So let's stop that, run this and see what this does. I'll do another one where we step in to make it really, really obvious. So set a breakpoint. Okay, so we're starting at number 0. We've got output number times number. So 0 times 0 equals the result of 0 times 0, which will be 0. The next number in the range, because we're jumping up 2, isn't going to be 1, but it's going to be 2. So when I drop down here, number is now 2. So 2 times 2 equals the result of 2 times 2, which should be 4. Third time number is now 4 because we've gone up 2 from 2, so it's now 4. So 4 times 4 equals the result of 4 times 4, which is 16. This time we're going to have 6 because we've gone up. 6 sixes are 36. So we're up to 8. 8 times 8, 64. And now if we jump up another 2 again, we've hit 10. That's the end. We don't do that. Stop. Finished. Okay. Very quickly then. Everything you've just seen me do with a list, we can do with a string. We can treat strings like lists. So if I've got a string must paint, we can say that for every character in the variable name, do that. So if I run that, we can see it's done exactly that. It's gone through line by line, and I'll just set a breakpoint and step in just so we can see it. And that could be done with the other two types of loop as well. So we've done it with a for loop. We can do exactly the same with a while loop. Again, I'm just treating it like a list. Python doesn't actually have a character data type. It just treats it as a string length of 1. Exactly the same thing. And once more, I could do exactly the same here. And finished. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you found the video useful. I will go back now and fix those diagrams in the actual blog post. Thank you. Bye.